When Jesus called his disciples, 12 to be exact, some of them were fishermen, some of them were tax collectors. Not only did he call the 12, but if you would look into the pages of the 8th chapter of Luke, the Bible also talks about the women that he called to assist him in his ministry. Oftentimes when we think about disciples, we only think about the men, who truly they were there, but there were women and young adults who followed Jesus. And some of the disciples had never done anything but what they had always done. When he called for Peter, James, and John, remember they were fishermen. So when Jesus told them, "Come and follow me, you shall catch fish," they knew what he was talking about because they were fishermen. And they followed him because they were familiar with that concept. And how often do we do things because we are familiar with the concept of what we are being presented? But as the disciples began to walk with Jesus and become his disciples, his followers, they began to encounter many different things. And some of those things they were not totally familiar with. Say, for instance, they had never seen someone cast out a demon out of a person who was considered mentally disturbed. They had not seen someone put spittle in his hands and take dirt and make mud and put on the eyes of a blind beggar, and that blind beggar began to see. So the disciples, those who followed Jesus, began to be unfamiliar with some of the things that they thought they would be doing as disciples of Christ. Are you with me? Amen. See, the disciples, as they began to walk with Christ, they began to ask questions. They began to possibly doubt. Am I the right person for this job? Am I the right member of this club? Will I be able to do what I am expected of? If you read in the Gospels, you will find that some of those who started out with Jesus in the beginning turned away and went back home. Because of the fact they took their eyes off of what was truly the real thing, and they began to focus inward on themselves and began to measure their ability or their inability to follow Jesus because of the fact they may have felt that they were inadequate. Amen. So many times, those of us who follow Jesus feel that we are inadequate for the call. Amen.